My family dismissed me for not fitting their standards. Now I'm rich. They asked for help. But my answer exposed their lies, shattered their world. I, a 27-year-old female, am still processing all of it. I grew up in one of those cookie-cutter suburbs in Ohio, where everyone has a perfectly manicured lawn and there's a Target exactly 7 minutes away. You know the type, where the most exciting thing that happens is when someone paints their front door a controversial color. My dad is an insurance agent. Think khakis and dad jokes, but make it mean. My mom teaches English at the local high school, which was super fun when I actually had her as my teacher, but we'll get to that horror show later. Then there's my sister Katie, a 29-year-old female who might as well have been copy-pasted from a Pantene commercial. I'm talking naturally blonde hair that actually does that bouncy thing. Green eyes, perfect ski slope nose, the whole package. Meanwhile, I got, well, everything else. Let me paint you a picture of little me, frizzy brown hair that looked like I stuck my finger in an electrical socket. Thanks, Ohio humidity. Dad's heavy eyebrows, plural, but really trying to be singular. Mom's round face, but make it rounder. And the kind of body type that had my pediatrician checking the husky box on my school forms.
Yes, that was actually a thing in the early 2000s.
Imagine being 8 and finding out your body type is husky. The jokes started early, like really early. My first clear memory of realizing I was the ugly one was at Katie's 7th birthday party, making me 5. Mom had dressed us in matching outfits, her first mistake, and while taking pictures she kept trying to fix me. Honey, suck in your cheeks a little. No, that's worse. Maybe just stand behind your sister. That became her go-to solution for every family photo for the next 20 years. Just hide the ugly kid. Dad was a different kind of cruel. He thought he was hilarious with his constant jokes. His favorite was introducing us to his work friends as my daughter Katie and my linebacker. He'd literally pause for laughs. And people did laugh because what else do you do when someone's making fun of their own kid? I can still hear him saying, "At least we know she'll save us money on prom dresses." Joke's on you, Dad. I still went to prom alone in a dress from Walmart, but I went. Mom's brand of bullying was more helpful. She started me on diets when I was 9. Not like, hey, maybe eat more vegetables diets, but full-on Weight Watchers meetings where I was literally the only kid. She'd pack Katie's lunch with normal kid stuff. Sandwiches, chips, those weird Hostess cakes everyone traded for. Mine? Celery sticks and low-fat cheese. Because apparently childhood obesity was a bigger concern than, I don't know, giving your kid an eating disorder. But the worst part wasn't even the direct stuff. It was the constant comparison to Katie. Everything was a competition that I was somehow losing before it even started. Katie would come home with a B+ and get praised for trying her best during cheer season. I'd get an A- and hear, well, if you weren't always in your room on that computer, maybe it could have been an A. Like, make it make sense. Family gatherings were their own special kind of hell. Our extended family picked up on the dynamic real quick, probably because my parents made it so obvious. Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, once tried to compliment my art skills at Thanksgiving when I was 12. Before I could even say thanks, Mom jumped in with, "Yes, she's creative. Katie, tell everyone about your solo in the winter concert." The message was clear. My achievements weren't just lesser, they weren't even worth discussing. The computer thing became my escape. I started spending more and more time learning to code because at least computers don't care what you look like. They either work or they don't. No one tells a piece of code it should try contouring to make its interface look thinner. By middle school, I had my routine down, wake up early to avoid breakfast comments, spend lunch in the computer lab working on projects really just avoiding the cafeteria drama, then hide in my room until dinner. Katie would burst in sometimes, usually when she needed help with her math homework or wanted to practice her cheer routines. Those were actually our best moments. When our parents weren't around, she was almost nice to me. Almost. The real kicker? I wasn't even that weird looking. Looking back at old photos, the ones where you can actually see me and I'm not artfully hidden behind a plant, I was just average. A little chubby, sure, but nothing that justified the level of critique I got. But when you grow up hearing you're ugly every single day from the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, that sticks with you. I remember this one time in 8th grade when I got invited to a classmate's birthday party, one of those makeover parties that were super popular in the early 2000s. Mom was so excited, like finally someone was going to fix me. She even bought me new clothes for it. Then at the party, the mom doing the makeovers looks at me and goes, "Oh honey, you have such pretty eyes. Why do you always hide behind those bangs?" And I just broke down crying because, in 13 years, none of my own family had ever found anything pretty about me. That's what people don't get about this kind of family dynamic. It's not just about being the ugly sibling. It's about being treated like you're worth less because of it. Like you need to make up for the crime of not being conventionally attractive by being smarter or nicer or more successful. And even then, it's never enough. Okay, picking up where we left off, high school. Fair warning, this is where stuff gets really messed up. Like if you thought middle school was bad, buckle up, buttercup. As I mentioned, my mom is an English teacher, and guess who got her for junior year English? This girl. And let me tell you, having your mom as your teacher when she's already disappointed in your existence is a special kind of torture. She'd do this thing where she'd use me as an example in class, but not in a good way. Like now, if you structure your essay like my name, you'll never get into a good college. Thanks, Mom. Real professional. But the worst part about having her as a teacher wasn't even the classroom stuff. It was how she'd combine school criticism with her usual appearance-based comments at home. Honey, maybe if you spent less time slouching in the back row trying to hide, you'd participate more in class discussions. Or my personal favorite, the other teachers mentioned you're always wearing that same oversized hoodie. No wonder Jason didn't ask you to homecoming. Side note, Jason was Katie's friend's brother, who Mom was convinced would be my only shot at dating. Spoiler alert, he took Katie's friend to homecoming instead. Katie was a senior when I was a sophomore, which meant I got to watch her live out every teen movie cliché in real time. Homecoming queen? Check. Dating the quarterback, Steve, who later becomes relevant to this story in the most karma-filled way? Check. Getting crowned at every single dance while I worked the coat check? Check. I wish I was making this up, but our high school really was that stereotypical. The thing about being the ugly sister in high school is that everyone feels entitled to comment on it. Like it wasn't enough that my family constantly reminded me. Now I had helpful classmates pointing it out too.
OMG, are you really Katie's sister?
But she's so... And then they'd just trail off. Like not finishing the sentence made it less rude. I developed this whole system for surviving school. I always got to class early to get a seat in the back corner, harder for people to stare at you. I ate lunch in the computer lab telling teachers I was working on extra credit projects, really just playing around with HTML and CSS, but they didn't need to know that. I started wearing these massive noise-canceling headphones everywhere, the kind that screamed, "Don't talk to me," and spent every free period in the library. The computer lab became my safe haven. Mr. Rodriguez, shout out to the real MVP, was the tech teacher who actually saw something in me beyond being Katie's weird sister. He's the one who first showed me how to really code, not just mess around with basic HTML. He started teaching me JavaScript after school, saying I had a natural logic to my thinking, the first time anyone had ever praised my brain instead of criticizing my body. But of course, my parents managed to ruin that too. Parent-teacher night rolls around, and Mr. Rodriguez tries telling them about my coding projects and how I might have a future in tech.
Mom's response?
Oh, that's nice, but shouldn't she focus more on subjects that might help her find a husband? Katie met Steve in AP Biology, you know. The absolute peak of high school hell was Katie's graduation picture. I'm sitting in the bleachers with my parents, watching Katie give her valedictorian speech. Because, of course, she was valedictorian. She's up there talking about embracing what makes you unique and loving yourself. The same girl who once told me I should consider wearing a paper bag over my head for her Sweet 16 photos because I was ruining the aesthetic. After the ceremony, during the family photos where I was, as usual, strategically placed in the back, I overheard Mom talking to her friends. She was going on about how proud she was of Katie. Then someone asked about me. Her exact words, well, at least one of them turned out right. We're still hoping my name might grow into her features.
Grow into my features?
Like I was some kind of puppy that might eventually look less awkward. I was 16, pretty sure my features were done growing. That summer was when I completely checked out of family life. I got a job at Computer Shack, one of those generic computer repair places at the mall, and picked up every shift I could. I started saving money in a secret account. Pro tip, never let toxic parents have access to your bank account. I learned how to build and repair computers, which was actually super useful later. The worst part? My parents were thrilled that I was working retail. They thought it was me accepting my place in the world or whatever. Mom actually said, "It's good that you're learning a trade, honey. Not everyone can be as academically gifted as Katie." Meanwhile, I'm in the back room teaching myself Python and dreaming of the day I could get the hell out of there. Senior year was just survival mode. Katie was off at college, some fancy private school where she could pursue her dreams of being a trophy wife. Spoiler alert, mission accomplished, temporarily at least. So, you'd think things would get better? Nope. Now it was all Katie's doing so well in college, and Katie's joined a sorority, and Katie's dating a business major. I threw myself into coding like full-on obsession mode. I didn't go to a single school event, skipped prom despite Mom's hysteria about it being my last chance to feel like a princess, and spent every free moment either working or learning to code. Mr. Rodriguez helped me apply for scholarships behind my parents' backs because he knew they wouldn't help with college applications unless it was for their approved list of schools, aka wherever Katie went. The day I got my full-ride scholarship to state for computer science was the day I realized I might actually escape. My parents' reaction? "Oh, that's nice, honey, but are you sure you want to go there? Katie says the girls at state don't care about their appearance at all. You already struggle enough with that." Little did they know, their ugly daughter was about to level up in the most spectacular way. So we're at the part of the story where things start turning around, but not before one last serving of family toxicity. Because, of course, my high school graduation was exactly what you'd expect. While other parents were crying happy tears and taking millions of photos, mine were busy explaining to relatives why I chose State University instead of following Katie to her fancy private college. Well, you know how it is. Some people just aren't cut out for more competitive environments. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Mom. The graduation party was even worse. Mom insisted on putting up photos from both her girls' special days, basically a shrine to Katie's perfect graduation next to my. Well, let's just say she picked the worst photos of me possible, including one where I'm mid-sneeze. Who even keeps a photo like that? But here's where it gets good. Remember that secret bank account I mentioned? Working every possible shift at Computer Shack had paid off. I had enough saved up for a deposit on a tiny studio apartment near campus. The day after graduation, while my parents were at some country club brunch with Katie, who was home for the summer and just couldn't miss seeing her friends, I loaded up my ancient Honda Civic with everything that mattered. Fun fact, you can fit your whole life in a Honda Civic if you've spent 18 years being told not to take up too much space. The best part? They didn't even notice I was moving out until my aunt called them that evening, asking why there was a finally escaped post on my Facebook. Mom called in full panic mode, not because she was worried about me, but because what will people think? It looks like we drove you away. Well, Karen, not her real name, but she might as well be one. Maybe you did drive me away. Just a thought. College was weird at first. Like, good weird, but still weird. Suddenly, I was in a place where nobody knew me as Katie's ugly sister. Nobody's mom was comparing me to their perfect daughter. I could just be me. Of course, my family had to try and ruin this too. Every holiday break was an exercise in psychological warfare. Mom would start with the subtle digs, "Oh honey, the computer science stress must be getting to you. Your face is breaking out." Or, "Are you sure you're eating enough vegetables? Your complexion looks tired." Dad's contribution was constantly asking if I'd met any nice business majors because apparently coding was just a phase. And what I really needed was a husband to take care of me. This from the man who once told me I had a face for radio and a voice for silent movies. Katie would drop by during her breaks too, always with some backhanded compliment like, "You're so brave for not caring about your appearance anymore." Because apparently wearing jeans and hoodies instead of dressing like a Stepford wife in training means you've let yourself go. But here's the thing about being away from toxic people, their opinions start mattering less and less. Every time I went home, their comments had less power. Maybe it was because I was finally doing well at something. Maybe it was because I had friends who actually liked me for me. Or maybe it was because I was finally starting to realize that being ugly wasn't actually the worst thing a person could be. Being cruel definitely ranked higher. By junior year, I had a solid 4.0 GPA, a paid internship at a local tech company, and was leading 3 different coding projects for my department. My academic advisor was already talking about graduate school opportunities. Life was looking up. Then came the incident, trademark, that changed everything. Remember how I mentioned I was good at gaming PC builds? Well, I'd started a little side hustle building custom gaming rigs for other students. Nothing major, just word-of-mouth stuff. But one of my clients was this guy who ran a popular Twitch stream. He loved the PC. I built him so much that he gave me a shout-out during one of his streams. Next thing I know, I'm getting orders from other streamers. I had to start a waiting list because I couldn't keep up with demand between classes. I was making decent money too, enough that I didn't have to work part-time anymore. My parents found out about this through Facebook. Note to self, really need to adjust those privacy settings. Their reaction? Pique them. Mom, well, I suppose if you can't be pretty, at least you can be useful. Dad, maybe you'll meet a nice boy who needs his computer fixed. Okay, so remember those gaming PCs I was building in college? That wasn't even the cool part. The real story starts with my absolute obsession with game physics. Quick backstory, I'd always been fascinated by how things move in games. You know, like how water flows, or how cloth moves in the wind, or how different materials break apart. Most people play games to escape reality, which, given my family situation, I totally get. But I was that weird kid pausing games to study how the physics engine handled different interactions. After graduation, I landed this entry-level job at a medium-sized software company. Nothing fancy, just basic back-end development stuff. The kind of job my parents called my little computer hobby whenever relatives asked what I was doing with my life. Meanwhile, Katie was living her best trophy wife life with Steve in their McMansion, so clearly she was the successful one. But here's where it gets interesting. During my off hours, I started working on this personal project. See, mobile games had this huge problem with their physics engines. They were either super resource heavy and killed your battery, or they looked fake as hell. I thought I could find a middle ground. The first 6 months were rough, like living off ramen and energy drinks while coding until 3 a.m. rough. My tiny apartment looked like a scene from A Beautiful Mind, with whiteboards everywhere covered in physics equations and programming notes. I had this old iPad taped to my wall that just ran physics simulations 24/7. My neighbors probably thought I was losing it. Then came the breakthrough. I figured out this way to optimize physics calculations for mobile processors that nobody had tried before. Instead of doing full physics simulations, my engine could predict the most likely outcomes and only calculate those paths. It was like, instead of calculating every possible way a ball could bounce, it figured out the most probable paths and focused on those. The best part? My engine used about 60% less processing power than the industry standard. Games could have console-quality physics without murdering your phone battery. I posted a demo video on Twitter just for fun. You know those tweets that blow up while you're sleeping? Yeah, that happened. I woke up to my phone having a literal meltdown from notifications. The demo had gone viral in the game dev community. My DMs were flooded with developers wanting to test it. I even got some emails from major gaming companies, which I initially thought were spam because, like, why would they contact me? But they were legit. Suddenly, I'm having Zoom calls with actual gaming industry people. They're throwing around terms like revolutionary approach and paradigm shift. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there in my ratty MIT hoodie, the only piece of college merch I own because it was on sale, trying to look professional while my cat's attacking my headphone cables. One company in particular, let's call them Game Corp, not their real name, was super interested. They flew me out to their headquarters for a meeting. First time flying business class, and I spent the whole flight panicking about whether I was sitting in my seat correctly. Peak imposter syndrome moment. The meeting was surreal. Picture this. I'm in this fancy conference room, explaining my engine to a bunch of senior developers, and they're all taking notes. Like, these industry veterans with 20+ years of experience were writing down what I was saying. My brain kept screaming, they're going to realize you're a fraud any minute now, but they didn't. Instead, they started talking numbers. Big numbers. The kind of numbers that made me wish I'd paid more attention in my business classes. They wanted to buy my engine outright. When they showed me the offer, I almost passed out. I had to ask them to repeat the number because I thought I was hallucinating. $2.8 million. After taxes and fees and all that fun stuff. I'd like to say I played it cool, but I definitely cried right there in the conference room. Thankfully, they were super nice about it. One of the VPs even told me she cried when she got her first big break, too. The negotiations took about 3 months. I had to get a lawyer and everything. Shout out to Maria, who explained contracts to me like I was 5 and prevented me from getting screwed over. I finally signed the papers on a rainy Tuesday morning in my lawyer's office. You know that moment in movies where someone checks their bank account and has to sit down? That's a real thing. I literally had to sit on the floor of my apartment when I saw all those zeros in my account. My cat looked at me like I was having a stroke. First thing I did, paid off my student loans. All of them, in one click. That feeling? Better than any drug could ever be. Second thing, bought a house. Nothing crazy expensive, just a nice 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood. The kind of house that says I'm successful but not showing off about it. I even got a proper office for work with those fancy standing desks and everything. I didn't tell my family right away, partly because I wanted to get all my financial ducks in a row first. Thanks, Maria, for recommending that financial advisor, and partly because I kind of wanted to enjoy my success without their commentary for a while. But, of course, news travels fast in the age of social media. Some gaming websites had written articles about the engine acquisition. One of my cousins, who's big into gaming, saw my name and shared it on Facebook. That's when all hell broke loose. It started with the calls. So many calls. First, it was just the usual weekly guilt trip from Mom, but suddenly she's calling every day, sometimes twice. And the transformation in her tone? Olympic-level mental gymnastics. The same woman who once told me I had a face only a mother could love, and even then, it's a struggle, was now gushing about how she always knew I had potential. But the real kicker came when she started talking about this big family dinner she wanted to organize at the Cheesecake Factory, because in her mind, that's the fanciest restaurant in existence. She even offered to make reservations herself, which, if you knew my mom, was like offering to donate a kidney. This woman once made me pay for my own birthday dinner because you need to learn financial responsibility. I knew something was up, but my therapist, shout out to Dr. Lisa, had been encouraging me to set boundaries instead of just avoiding them, so I agreed to dinner. Big mistake. Huge. Walking into that restaurant was like entering the Twilight Zone. There's my mom, wearing her special occasions blazer, the one that usually only comes out for parent-teacher conferences in church. Dad's actually wearing a tie, which I hadn't seen since Katie's wedding, and Katie? Oh boy, Katie's there with her husband Steve, looking like she's auditioning for Real Housewives of the Midwest. First red flag, they're nice to me, like aggressively nice. Mom compliments my hair, which literally hasn't changed since she called it a rat's nest at Christmas. Dad asks about my computer business like he suddenly understands what I do. Katie keeps touching my arm and calling me sis. She hasn't called me that since we were kids. Then the truth starts coming out. Turns out, perfect Katie's life isn't so perfect anymore. Steve's startup failed spectacularly. Turns out, selling blockchain-enabled smoothies wasn't the million-dollar idea he thought it would be. They're 3 months behind on their McMansion mortgage. Katie had to sell.